Welcome to today's episode of History with Holland. Today, I have a special episode for you that will be a little different than usual. Today, I will be discussing the growing popularity of renewable energy and a slight amount about its history. The question I'm striving to answer during this episode is, if renewable energy has been around for centuries, why is it such a popular industry now? What about our culture makes it necessary now? To begin answering that question, I want to take you back to the beginning of these resources by looking at the following graph. Although this graph does not show it, wind and water energy usages have been around for thousands of years. As you can see, renewable energy was at its peak during the early 1800s. This was because of the growing fascination with the term efficiency and the new knowledge of how to turn wind and water into energy. After these sources did not power enough, the usages of coal and petroleum began to take over, as shown in the sudden decrease from the 19th to 20th century. Now, let's fast forward to how that has affected our environment. The burning of coal and petroleum and other oils are some of the main factors in increasing our carbon footprint. A carbon footprint is the amount of carbon dioxide that is emitted into the atmosphere due to the consumption of fossil fuels. In addition to the increasing carbon footprint, there are four more main factors that contribute to the need for change: deforestation, population growth, technological advances, and the rise of oil prices. First, deforestation is problematic because these trees and plants are what help to keep our air clean by using the CO2 that is in the air. Next, technological advances. The growth of the car industry and other forms of machinery have played a huge role in increasing the carbon footprint. This is because these machines and technologies require a lot of energy to power, and gas and oil are the cheapest ways to do that right now. With the population increasing, that only means the amount of cars on the road are increasing too, which unfortunately destroys the environment. Not only is increasing the carbon footprint detrimental to our environment, it is also a factor in having poor health and having asthma rates increase drastically since the air is not pure. Because of this, the government and the rise of the environmental movement have played a huge role in trying to increase the growing popularity of renewable energy resources. In 2015, Paris hosted the United Nations Climate Change Conference with the intent to finally create a binding agreement regarding climate change and pollution by all of the world's nations. This agreement is an example of Kranzberg's fourth law of how non-technical factors take precedence in technology and policy. Through this policy, 196 countries of the world agreed to do what they could do to tackle climate change and create new technologies that help increase the usage of renewable energy resources. This was a monumental change because it was the first time that a plan has been created to tackle these issues for now and in the long run. In 2015, renewable energy consisted of about 19% of the energy consumption in the world. These resources consisted of both traditional sources, such as wood for heating in developing countries, and non-traditional ones, such as algae, geothermal, and biofuels. That percentage is only expected to increase as the government creates more policies, such as the Paris Agreement, and provides more funding for technology. Because of the increase of these renewable energy resources, having more energy efficient ones have become an environmental and economic necessity. Therefore, more renewable energy technology is developing, which offers new and different jobs for so many innovative people. Now, sustainability is a human value that is being embedded in all of these new technologies. The image here shows a few examples of these renewable energy technologies. Technology like this is important to be able to not only generate, but also to find ways to harvest the energy for future usage since scale has increased and there are certain periods when energy is needed most, such as running air conditioners on a hot summer day. These technologies from left to right are for geothermal, hydropower, wind, concentrating solar power, and biomass. It is predicted that there was an increase of $1.6 billion in the amount of money put into green technology from 2016 to 2017, raising numbers up to approximately $13.6 billion. An example of this is the rebuilding of the CIS Tower in Manchester, England. It is an amazing example of the usage of both solar and wind power technology to generate 180,000 kilowatt hours of electricity per year. Another form of renewable energy source that is popular now is the use of algae. Algae is an aquatic organism that converts sunlight into energy and stores it in oil form. If this algae is stored in the right conditions, it has the potential to store up to 60 times more oil than land-based plants can. Another positive about using algae farms is that if these farms are near places that emit enough CO2, such as the highway in this picture, that CO2 can also be used to feed the algae and help it grow. This ultimately makes algae a carbon-neutral form of energy, which if executed correctly could help solve our problems substantially. There are three main reasons why we should expect the algae industry to take off. Those are: number one, production of the right form of algae is increasing. Two, logistical problems with the process of creating the biofuel from algae are being solved. And lastly, there are more and more biorefineries being built. Luckily, algae is not the only form of renewable energy that is gaining popularity. Other biomass resources consist of scrap lumber, forest debris, certain crops, manure, and some types of waste residue. Currently, wood makes up the leading biomass source used today. These biomass sources will never run out because waste will always exist, and if we manage our forests properly, trees will always exist too. Although when biomass sources are burned, they can create a lot of emissions and ash. That ash can luckily be reused in soil for certain plants. By 2040, renewable energy is projected to have increased its usage by about 2% per year. Therefore, it is essential for improved energy sources to be used efficiently. This is mostly due to the state and federal policies being passed and the decrease of cost of these technologies. As long as people stay aware of these issues and how important it is to limit our CO2 emissions and support renewable energy and green technology, this industry will only continue to grow. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of History with Holland, and I hope you join me next week.